Welcome to Born to Multiply. I've been wanting to do a program like this for a long time now, and I'm excited that the timing was right for us to do this and make it happen at this very moment in time. It's so needed. And you may ask, why was this program created? Years ago, I read Genesis 1:28, Matthew 25, and then a story in Second Kings about the widow woman. And that's really where the concept first was born. I remember reading in Genesis 1:28, and it says, when God said, be fruitful, multiply, and have dominion. And I saw early on in the beginning that God expects us to multiply. And so the second time I saw this, sometime late, I was reading in Matthew 25. I used to teach out of Matthew 25 for a very long time, for over 2 decades ago. And I would talk about how God wanted us to be great stewards of our money. And then something happened. I started making lots of money. And I remember reading that scripture one day again, reading a whole chapter, and I just got a new revelation. And I saw how it wasn't so much for me about stewardship in that time. It was about multiplication, because I noticed that it was a story of a master who gave three different servants three different amounts of money, and he went away. And when he came back, he asked for an account of the money. And the first servant was like, "Hey, I was able to make 10 times your money. Here you are." And the master was like, "Awesome, amazing. Go ahead. I'm going to make you a ruler over many cities." And then we look at the second man, and the second one also multiplied his money, and he also got a great reward. But when you look at the third man was afraid. Fear. He didn't do anything with his money. He didn't make the money multiply. And the master says, "Listen, throw him in the outer darkness where there's gnashing of teeth." So I saw how God expected us to multiply our money. And then there was a third story that I was reading where there was a widow lady. Her husband had died, had left her no money. He didn't have life insurance. And that was a joke, y'all. And so anyway, the prophet came and was like, "What are you getting ready to do?" And she says, "Listen, I only have this little bit of flour and a little bit of oil. I'm going to make us one last loaf of bread. I'm going to lay down and die. My son and I are both going to eat it. We're going to die." And he says, "No, no, no, no. What do you have in your hand?" And he posed a very pivotal question to her. And he told her, he gave her instructions on what to do. He says, "Go out, borrow a bunch of vessels." And she did. And the oil just began to flow, and it began to multiply. It multiplied so much so until it didn't stop until she ran out of vessels to be able to put it in. And so I saw then again, there was another witness or another example of how God multiplied her. And so, what does born to multiply really mean? It means that, I want to be able to show people how to use what's in their hand to leverage their bankable gifts. Everybody, their bankable purpose. Everybody was born, with a gift or a purpose. So, here's the thing. I believe that vision is the language of heaven, and it's the currency of dreamers. I also believe that you have to be willing, if you have a dream, to execute the vision. I believe money is man made, but prosperity is God given. I believe that with all my heart. I believe that wealth flows or wealth follows purpose. And so it's important that you find out what your purpose is so you can find out what your wealth flow is. And then I believe that no man gets to choose your financial destiny but you. Not your boss, not the government, not your spouse, not your pastor, not your past circumstances. So often we allow outside influences to dictate how we live our lives, trapped in the world of scarcity. And I'm here to offer you a way of escape. That's really what I'm called to do in the earth. And so, in order for me to do that, it requires me to break down years of unprofitable programming and employee mindset indoctrination. This requires pruning. And so when I think about the word pruning, or it actually means to trim by cutting away dead or overgrown branches or stems, especially to increase the fruitfulness and the growth of a tree or a plant. And so the world programs us to be managers, but God created us to be multipliers. And so the consumer versus the producer mindset. Producers are people who make their own food. They create their own wealth. Whereas consumers depend on others to feed them, their jobs, the government, your spouse. And so they depend on outside influences. And so when I look at how 90% of all women will have the sole responsibility of their finances at some point of their life, and 79% of them are not prepared for it, those are some pretty scary statistics. And then 3 out of 4 people people in poverty are women. And so you can fight for equality all you want, but the best way to create equal opportunities and generational wealth is for you to own your own purse. And so you have to learn how to move your money in this century. And that requires change. It requires quick change. And so it requires you to create space for the next level in your life. And so in order for us to make room for our new growth, you have to create the space. And so when I was a little girl, I used to watch my grandfather prune the trees in his front yard, right? And for plants and trees to thrive and grow, you have to remove certain branches and stems and allow the plant to grow to its full potential. And if left to themselves, plants can grow fine on their own. They do it all the time in the wild. But when pruned and given the room to grow, it can grow to extraordinary heights. And so that's what we're going to be doing inside of this program. In the beginning, we're going to be pruning you a little bit, breaking you down so we can really get beyond societal inhibitions and to get to the heart of your bankable purpose. And then later on in the program, we will show you how to leverage your bankable purpose, that's your seed, and then give you practical tools that you're going to need to discover where that seed needs to be planted, how it needs to be watered, how it needs to be fed and nurtured so you can grow to unprecedented heights. So get ready. I'm excited. I am honored to be your guide and Born to Multiply. See you in Module 1.